Okay, everyone, this is my spoiler review of X-Men the Animated Series, Season 4, Episode 10, One Man's Worth Part 2. This originally came out September 16th, 1995. So we jump right where the cliffhanger was from Part 1, and this is where the bomb's about to go off that will kill Xavier in 1959, and that's exactly what happened. So we just see the awful thing happen that they were trying to prevent, and that it was a complete failure. And I love that Bishop is just hot here and he blames Wolverine. And Wolverine is a great reaction where he says, No neck redneck dumps on my wife and gets away with it. And I love when that man Wolverine's talking about shows up with the mob and Storm literally just puts them in a whirlwind and they're just going around this whirlwind as the scene continues on. But there's such great moments with Wolverine and Storm as a couple in this episode, and it really is, like, to me, the highlight of this two-part episode of One Man's Worth. And you see that when Wolverine is done, he says, with the merry-go-round and constantly trying to fix this, and she gives him a kiss on the cheek and reminds him of the hero he actually is and that he wouldn't want to let people down. Really good moments like that between the two of them that really makes you see why this relationship works with a person that's so angry and emotional like a Wolverine and having someone strong and level-headed like a Storm calming him down. She brings the best out of Wolverine. So now our crew goes to the future, 2055, but it's bigger, and Forge is a cyborg who is under control of Master Mold. And then we get to see the Enforcers for the first time. They come in, and what's cool is I was saying how much I love this character of Shard and that she's so underutilized. I hope they bring her back for X-Men 97, and she uses her beams here for the first time, which was cool. And it's cool knowing that she's Bishop's sister and that they reveal that in this episode. And Bishop has a great episode. He goes to town at one point on one of these Enforcers and literally shoots it so much that he shoots it in half. And I also love this moment where Wolverine gets knocked out and Storm starts tearing, and he just comes right back to life and kisses her. So there's that healing factor in a great moment for Wolverine. Now, Master Mold gives an earful to Fitzroy. Master Mold is the most sassy villain in this show, period. He has such an attitude always, and he's mad at Fitzroy because he didn't take care of the time-traveling mutants. So that's when Fitzroy's like, well, what are these 4 mutants going to do? And right then they get a building alert that there's mutants arriving. But then when Fitzroy and Bantam overhear Master Mold talking right outside the door, he's telling Nimrod to kill them both when they finish their task. So this sets up quickly for Fitzroy to change his philosophy and not work for Master Mold anymore, and he actually ends up helping the X-Men. Now with Bishop, like I said, he has a great episode. I love that we get to see a lot of him using his powers where he absorbs an attack and shoots it back, so he does that a lot with Nimrod in this episode. And that's where the surprise comes up of Fitzroy helping out, and that he gives Bishop a disc that's going to be very important later on. And Shard has a great heroic moment where she pushes Wolverine out of the way of Nimrod's blast. She gets hit in that moment, and she says to them just to leave. If your mission is successful, Forge and I will be okay. And you get this sad moment here where you see Shard and Forge at the end of this scene looking up at a Nimrod who's about to destroy them. So it's a very dark scene. It's probably one of the darkest ends of 2 characters we've seen in this show, which I like that they went there, and it had more emotional payoff in that sense. It is interesting, though, they didn't show Forge and Shard at the end of the episode somewhere, but it makes sense because they didn't want to crowd having closing scenes here where you really need that moment for Storm and Wolverine. But it's a really, really heroic moment for Shard, and what an awesome way to go out. Now, our main crew will go back now to 1959 again. They will see their other version of themselves from last episode at the cafe. They get in that fight again. Charles runs away again, but this time they stop Charles. And Wolverine has a great moment where he says to Charles, "Are you coming quietly or do you want to make some noise?" And his claws come out and Charles faints at this. It's so funny to see Charles Xavier, who we know as Professor X, fainting at Wolverine. And Storm goes, "You did it again, Logan." That was such a good line. And another great moment here is Charles is convinced again through reading Storm and Wolverine's mind of everything they're telling him, but he also recognizes that Wolverine doesn't actually want the mission to succeed because of his love for Storm. I really, really like that. And he has a great moment where Cindy shows up, but Wolverine can smell it's Nimrod. So the show just classically does a great job of using Wolverine's powers, like his healing, like in the scene before, but really his senses. And they really give a beat down to Nimrod in this scene. I thought it was great, but he's very frustrating, Nimrod, because he always reconstructs. But that's where Bishop is smart and shoots his armband. Now this is where Fitzroy and Bantam will show up to kill Charles, but this is where Bishop plays the projection that is from the disc that Fitzroy from the future gave him, convincing himself not to do this. So it works. Wolverine throws the bomb, and then their other versions of themselves from last episode vanish. And I'm sure Shard and Forge are okay somewhere in the future. They're alive. But the character of Bantam is such a weird character. I really don't even know the point of his character in these episodes. And he has a weird line after Bishop warns Fitzroy not to pull something like this again. He just goes, time to go, hurry, 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 time to go home. It was so weird. Everything about him is weird. It was also strange in this moment that they just let Fitzroy absorb Charles with no resistance from any of the X-Men, not even Logan. Very weird. It was just kind of rushed in there. Probably didn't even have to do it. But Bishop has this great line. It's incredible how one kid can mean so much to so many people, talking about Charles and one man's worth. And we see that Storm and Wolverine will still be together here because they have their time bands on, and as long as they're charged, they stay outside of time. And Wolverine goes, well, how long? Talking about the charge and the bands. And Bishop just says, sorry, the charge only lasts a couple of days. I thought it was just such a great matter-of-fact line. And it's such a great moment where he says, it was good, darling. And she's like, it was the best, tough guy. I love that. And they get little memories when they kiss goodbye and they take the bands off. And now they're in present day where we had seen them, and now they're having a picnic together. And he says, thanks for the tumble, Storm. We ought to wrestle more often. And she goes, now, Logan, some women might think that you were flirting. I thought this was such a good moment here, and it's like a what if scenario, and Charles saying we will never know. Really, really nice ending. So I'm going to give this one an 8.7. I liked it a little better than part 1, and it really goes on the strength of Wolverine and Storm's relationship and how convincingly they make it work. And you're like, wow, I really like this pairing now, and they really do work for each other. So it's a cool what if scenario, and I really, really like Shard, like I said, and Bishop has a great episode and gets to really use the extent of his powers. So it's a solid part 1 and part 2 entry for One Man's Worth. It's definitely one I think is one of the best two-parters of the show. Let me know what you thought of this episode down below, and of part 1 and 2 in general, and I love to hear your thoughts. I read every comment. I try to respond as many as I can. Hit that sub button so you don't miss one of my reviews of X-Men the animated series. I'll also be doing X-Men 97. I do all things X-Men in general, and I'll see you next time.